So you can hear me? Okay, I'm going to
go to slideshow on the top menu there.
Go to slideshow. Got it. And go from the beginning. How's that? Well, welcome everyone to a very quick tour of Valley House Gallery and Sculpture Garden. I really thank Paula and Edward for inviting me and Edward for teaching me how to communicate with you via Zoom. We'll hope I was a good student. We were founded in 1954, 66 years ago, by an artist and his wife, Donald and Peggy Vogel. And the gallery has transformed over the years. People used to park under the trees in the early 60s. And you'll see on the left a view from that time period, and on the right, the way we look today. Here's Donald and Peggy Vogel. Donald was a very skinny, penniless artist who married the daughter of the plant manager of Convair in Fort Worth. And they had a wonderful life together, had 3 children. And I married the founder's middle son, Kevin Vogel. Here's Donald and some of his paintings around him in the studio. This was when, about the time period I had begun working at the gallery. I began here in 1978. And the fact that Kevin and I began to take over the gallery gave Donald time to really spend all of his days in the studio, should he wish. Here's a couple of his paintings. He painted from his imagination, not from life. He didn't paint outdoors on site. That wasn't of interest to him, but he did always have to paint with natural light. Insects and the discomfort of painting outdoors would not have appealed to him whatsoever. This is what you'll see when you drive into the parking lot on Spring Valley Road. We're located between Hillcrest and Preston. It's the same modernist building that Donald built originally as a frame shop, and we have added on many elements to it. The entrance to the sculpture garden, and most of the work you'll see in the garden is for sale. It's our outdoor exhibition space. The figures on the left are Deborah Ballard. The yellow welded steel sculpture is David Dreyer, and it's related to an elm leaf. And in the middle of the property is the residence that Donald designed around his studio, which is the big bank of windows on the left. And it is where Kevin and I live today, in the middle of the property. And here is the garden, a view, and the back of the house. And ground cover and paths just give us ample opportunities to display sculpture throughout the garden. And it changes. I'll show you some things that you won't see when you come because they've been sold and they'll be moving out shortly. We've had 3 landscape architects over the years. Clarence Roy and Erica Farkash, who was Donald's second wife. And now we're working with Terry Arterburn, who is a wonderful landscape architect who knew the first 2. So that continuity of ideas about the planning is very important. This is the pond behind the residence, between the residence and White Rock Creek, which has flooded in about 2.5 years ago, 14 inches of water into the house. So It is an unpredictable thing. This is what we might look like tomorrow. This is a snowstorm that on the creek that was so beautiful. We used this image on a holiday card a number of years ago. So sculptures all over the garden. On the left is Deborah Ballard, a Dallas sculptor who will have an exhibition here in the springtime. And on the right is a wonderful welded steel sculpture John Bruff Miller made. It will be traveling to a very public space in the McKinney area very soon as the foundation for it is ready. It's about 14 feet tall. So our taste is quite diverse. And paths go all the way back to the creek. And we love the way a vista to the garden is framed by an area in a sculpture, in this case by Hayes. So every time you come, it's a different experience in the garden. Things are blooming. Even in wintertime, it's beautiful here. The rudbeckia are blooming all over the island and the pond in the summer. We try to leave things very naturally. I leave the heads on all these flowers when they stop blooming. Douglas Talame is an author who's influencing me mightily in recent times, and about planting things that sustain insects so that it feeds the birds and feeds the migrating butterflies. Oak leaf hydrangea is all over the garden. It's one of our favorite understory plants. Hostas blooming at different times. So this is not an arboretum. We don't have their budget. And things are natural, they're perennial, they come up in different seasons. And sometimes there's mixes like alliums and echinacea blooms. And unfortunately, the rabbits have now realized that they can actually eat an allium stem and just leave the ball of flowers down on the ground. So anybody that has ideas for me about how to control rabbits, it would be mightily appreciated. The garden is used by painters. A number of classes will come and students will set up all over the garden. And it's a lot of fun to walk back there and see what they're producing. And one of the things that I have been doing a lot lately is producing catalogs on our artists. I have 2 underway at the moment on the 2 exhibitions that are currently up. I don't know how many I've produced in recent years, but it seems like if you have the good graces to represent an artist, you should leave something behind after your lifetime. This is the current exhibition at Valley House. It takes over 2/3 of the gallery. This is Mark Messersmith. He lives in Tallahassee, Florida. And man's overrunning natural habitat and poisoning the earth and mowing everything down and is really one of the interests that he has. You'll see that on the very top, there are wood carvings that echo the action in the painting. And along the bottom, there are dioramas. So just to show you, these are very large works. They're not going to be for everyone. And there are some smaller works in the exhibition, but they're very dense, brightly colored. The narrative is tremendous. But when you think about the way an artist starts a painting, they're so complicated, you would think that he would have to do preparatory drawings to start these, and he does not. This is like writing a novel. He doesn't know how it's going to end until he's finished. So this is what's currently at the gallery. We are open 6 days a week, Monday through Saturday. And the next exhibition will be a Dallas painter, David Dreyer. This is one of the paintings that's going to be in an ad in Art and Antiques magazine coming up. This is about 48 by 54 inches. These paintings are his own otherworldly spatial inventions. They start with very small drawings. Here's another one that's going to be on our invitation. And they evolve over time as he's painting them. We're also going to introduce a new painter with David Dreyer and part of the gallery. Her name is Emily LaCour. She lives in Dallas, was a graduate student at SMU, as was David Dreyer. And she's one of the artists that we're beginning to introduce to the gallery, about 4 different new artists this year, which is quite an unusual thing for us. This is a COVID painting. Since we all can't get together and be around a table, she's envisioning all the things we've lost, like getting together with friends around a table. And so this is one of the works coming up. Another new artist that we're going to introduce is a Dallas painter named Amy Warrants. She responds to people that she sees. On the right is a woman she saw in Vienna. On the left is a woman she saw at a Mcdonald's in Dallas, and takes photographs and then transforms those photographs into work. Shawn Karens is another new artist. This is quite different than the 2 previous paintings you saw. Shawn has a very much of an outsider element to his work, and they're sort of folkloric in their approach. And he's come to the Dallas area about 6 years ago, works at the Dallas Museum, and he'll have a show coming up. Austin Uzor is an artist who is getting his graduate degree at North Texas. He has moved to the area from Nigeria. And you never know where somebody's come from or what it is about someone that appeals to you, but I see great promise in this young man, and I've jumped in very early. Artists that we represent are always having a project that is, in this case, it's a wonderful commission of Van Cliburn. This is the original plaster in the studio of Michael O'Keefe. And it was commissioned for the new concert hall at TCU that is named after Van Cliburn. This is the bronze, which is now installed in the lobby, but they can't have the gala for the building until 2022. So he's done many, many drawings. If you connect with our website, you can watch a video of Michael creating this piece from the ground up, from preparatory drawings that he made, to study Van Cliburn's form, listening to his music. So here's another type of thing that we do. We loaned a very large painting to the Amon Carter Museum. Cedric Huckabee, a Fort Worth artist, was the first artist they invited to do a new program where they take their enormous atrium space and dedicate it to a contemporary artist. And Cedric Huckabee got his graduate degree from Yale and then moved back to Fort Worth. And this is Hidden in Plain Sight. It's the name of the painting. And the children can show you the scale of something that's 18 feet tall, much taller than what I can fit in the gallery. Another artist, a Cuban artist, Lillian Garcia Royg, is somebody we've represented for many years. These are very heavily encrusted paintings that she paints out in the woods. If you've been to the gallery, you might have seen her exhibitions. This was one that we gave to the MAC, which has now moved since when this photograph was taken. And one of these huge paintings was just accepted into the collection of the Perez Museum in Miami. We do things with artists from overseas. Alex Corneau is an Italian artist, a sculptor, and makes drawings. And one day he walked across the gardens at the gallery and left a beautiful catalog on his work. And welded steel is his medium. He doesn't fabricate in bronze and model. He he welds found steel and makes these forms. Another artist that we have lost now, Miguel Zapata from Spain, passed away. And I wanted to show you the drawing of George Washington that was commissioned for the Bush Library. And it's up on the private floor, so it's something you can't see. It's a very large piece, but equestrian forms are something that interested Miguel all of his working life. He always wanted to do a life-size, like a Guatemala sculpture in his native Spain. And he has made monuments in Cuenca and in Madrid, but he passed away after doing an enormous bronze door that's now on Texas State University that was dedicated to the history of Texas. And I know there's somebody in the audience who absolutely adores Pierre Bonnard. That was the exhibition that opened the new Dallas Museum, and several of our artists are very keen on his work. This is Henry Finkelstein, another graduate artist from Yale, whose mother actually taught in the art department at Yale. He works on site in Brittany, France, and Pierre Bonnard and Renoir and Titian and any number of artists are things that excite him. So, and also Trish Nickel, a Dallas artist. On the right, you'll see a poster on the wall of her little pied-à-terre in Paris. She went there to visit her daughter, and she ended up staying for 12 years, painting in Paris. And she loves Pierre Bonnard, and there's a poster off to the right referencing a show that she saw in Paris. And I just was going to walk you through some of our artists. They're not in alphabetical order, just to show you the range of our interest. Bart Forbes is one of America's most famous illustrators. He's done works for the Olympics and for America's Cup, and his works are in many country clubs in the United States. And this is one of the paintings he makes for himself. David Gibson is a wonderful photographer. You'll see a lot of his work at the Amon Carter Museum. This is an image of Colorado that is 60 inches wide, and he printed this himself. He has a 27-foot tank that he would have printed this in. He's done a lot of development of the old buildings around Fair Park, and he's put in garden spaces around them, and really have done a phenomenal job in developing inner city property. So this is one of David Gibson's works. Kodak gave him his first exhibition in 1990. We gave him his second exhibition and the first exhibition that a gallery gave him. Barnaby Fitzgerald teaches at SMU. He's taught there many years. Here's two of his works. Also another MFA graduate from Yale, was raised in Italy. And I thought I might take you into my house too to show you a very large painting that's in my living room. You know, sometimes you see something that you resonate with. And this space with this plate of pasta in the lower left and these huge scale sculptures. So you're looking at a sculpture in a painting, and small scale works on the ground and references to mathematics with the arc of this rope and the arc of the competing arc with the arch doorway. And there's a broom sticking into that ear over there on the left. Here's an installation in the gallery. On the wall are 3 paintings by Otis Huband. He's a Houston artist. He's in his late 80s, still working. And in the foreground is Jason Mell, a young Dallas artist, a sculptor. This is a bronze that's now been moved to the garden, but we like to reference sculpture and painting in our exhibitions. Here's a sculptor, Phil Evett. He was British. He came to the United States and settled in in San Antonio, where he was the head of the sculpture department at Trinity for many years. This is me with Phil, looking at one of his wood sculptures. And in the next slide, Phil Evett is talking to David Everett, two very similar names, both sculptors. And we lost Phil in his 90s. And David Everett is still working in his studio in Austin. He's a wood carver as well. And I'll take you to an exhibition of his work at the Beaumont Museum. And they ended up buying the alligator for their collection that you see in the middle of the room. He was the first sculptor that they showed at the Umloff Sculpture Garden in Austin. And he was one of Umloff's studio assistants for many years. An artist that spends most of his time in Texas is Bob Stuthwade. He was a student at Jesuit in Dallas, had his first solo exhibition in Dallas at age 18, and it sold out opening night. This is one of his Big Bend paintings. And here are two recent paintings, the Frio River on the left, and a dinky little lake in Texas that his wife does not understand what the appeal is, but look at this charming little painting that he's made in a space that just goes to show you that the artist eye is can make beauty out of anything. He was a protege of a Perry Nichols, a Dallas painter, but didn't ever go to art school and has spent his life as an artist. I had to show you another nod to Pierre Bonnard here on the left by Mary Vernon. She taught at SMU for 50 years. She taught me art history in the 70s, and she also taught studio art. So here are two works that show you her nod to another painter. The Pierre Bonnard that was acquired by the Kimball Museum recently on the left. Doesn't look a thing like the Pierre Bonnard, but that's in the hands of another painter. And on the right, there's a nod to a Goya painting that she likes a great deal at the Metropolitan Museum. Here's Mary expounding at one of our artist talks. Our artist talks were legendary. For Mary, we had to use both rooms of the gallery and simulcast it into another room. She had such a response. She's a wonderful lecturer. Gail Norfleet is a Dallas artist. She was President Bush's first teacher. Three of our artists have worked with him. And this is a multi-level piece. There are two pieces of plexiglass with work painted on both sides of each of the pieces. So they're very luminous. Things cast shadows. They're very exciting surfaces. This was something that happened after a trip to West Texas, to Marfa. This is a strange chapel that Austin artist John Cobb has been painting for the last 35 years. We literally erected this in one part of the gallery with some of his other work around it. John had an experience that led him to want to make this chapel and leave it behind at the end of his life. He tells me that it's not going to be sold, it will be given. And these paintings are egg tempera and gold leaf. Some of these are so beautiful they could hang in the Kimball Museum. Here are two of them. But he also walks out around his Austin home and paints incredible views like the big barbecue at the lower left. And he did a series of the missions around San Antonio in the upper right. This is an artist. I was taken to his studio by another artist, which is frequently how I will meet someone that is really special, because one artist will never take you to see another artist's work unless they have tremendous regard for him. It's very rare for me to buy a piece when I go to an artist's studio, and in this case I did. I thought you might like to see something very unusual. Vera Barnett is an artist who has to build a sculpture to make a painting. So all of these figures are built with plastic. In the case of the painting on the left, this is based on a Virginia Woolf quote about how it would be better to be locked out than to be locked in. So it's sunny outside and this woman is watering a dead plant inside. She is locked in herself. The painting on the right is a nod to a Picasso print, a dry point, called The Frugal Repast, and it references a particularly frugal part of the life of this artist and her husband, who's also an artist. So she sewed these figures, she stuffed them with plastic, they have an armature that holds them, and then she has to paint them. They're exquisitely painted. She was taught in classical manner at the Pennsylvania Academy, the oldest art school in America. Brian Cobble is one of the United States' most accomplished artists with the medium of pastel. The pastel at the upper right is referencing shop windows in Abilene, Texas, where his work was on view at the Grace Museum. And at the lower left, this is a small neighborhood in Lexington, Nebraska, that has had an influx of a Latin population and who work in the meatpacking plants. And that little yard sculpture of the donkey is referencing this. They are absolutely extraordinary works. He wins prizes in New York for his skill. And Lloyd Brown is an artist that we've probably represented longer than any other. Kevin and I took his work on. He is working his way across the United States on Highway 50. These are all scenes in small towns. The multi-panel piece on the bottom, which I hope you can adjust your screen to see properly, has silos and small houses, just a tire shop. They look like picket fences. And in a way, you could also think of these as grave markers, because so many small towns across Highway 50 are declining. Luanne Barrows, an artist who passed away this summer, she was just marvelous. She had a narrative style. She had her own technique for working. The painting in the lower left was Wild Bill from Liberty Hill, never worked and never will. He's got his truck up on the blocks. The dogs are lying all over. He's playing the banjo, and his aunt is hanging up all of his white shirts and doing his laundry. In the upper right, these are Jesus heads all over this wonderful robe. She had three things that interested her: folkloric work in Texas, the Middle East. She taught famous Bible study classes in Austin. And she was a great reader. And she happened to see a pilgrim in the Middle East wearing this Jesus head fabric on their robe. And she had to recreate it when she came back to Austin. My father-in-law that I showed you at the beginning, who was very influenced by the French Impressionist, thought that Valton Tyler was one of the most creative artists that he had ever encountered. Valton is an outsider artist. He's self-taught, and Valton had his last exhibition before he died in 2017 at the Amon Carter Museum. I can't tell you how rare that is. He'd never even been to the museum, and he lived in Garland. And this is Valton in front of the entrance to the museum. This is one of his etchings. He made 50 etchings. And my father-in-law had very little money. He was always working on the edge, but he always believed in helping Valton. And he set up Valton to work in the print studio at SMU and be taught by Larry Shoulder. There's a movie that was made about Fountain before he passed away, and by Edward Gomez, one of the most influential critics of outsider art worldwide. And this is an installation view at the Amon Carter Museum. It says on the wall, "I am a dreamer, not an artist, like Leonardo da Vinci." This shows how things change. I took on an artist named Lindy Chambers, and she loved painting all the trailers that were around where she lived. She was a horsewoman outside of Houston. Goats and dogs were always populating her paintings. So upper left is one of her early paintings. And in a recent show at the lower right is the way her work has evolved. She's quite a colorist. This painting is actually reproduced on the cover of an Amarillo Museum exhibition invitation that is on view right now of figurative painting. Here's an artist I took on recently, Miles Cleveland Goodwin. He's from Mississippi. These are two relatives that he's painting. Sometimes you are just compelled to do something. I found this man 10 o'clock at night looking at a website trying to find a university professor who wanted me to look at his work. And I looked at this website, Frolic Gallery in Portland, Oregon, and looked at all their artists and wasn't moved really by a lot. And then I fell into Miles, and he felt like Southern music and Southern writing. This is a recent painting. This is going to be on the cover of my next catalog, and the director of the Amon Carter Museum is writing the essay for it. This is an artist who's young. He's not very well known yet, but I think he has a tremendous future. And he's painting an uncle who wasn't too thrilled to be shown this way, but this is what life does to a man. And very, very powerful painting. So Valley House also doesn't just represent living artists. We do secondary market works. On the left is a painting from the 1800s that we bought on a trip to Europe, beautifully painted, of someone making the grand tour. On the right is Edmund Kinzinger, one of his early drawings before he was hired as the first art professor at Baylor in 1935. This was something that he did when he was part of the Ucht group in Germany in the 19-teens. We also take on all kinds of wonderful American artists. We had the estate of Hugh Henry Breckenridge, who did the American Impressionist painting on the left. You see mills spewing in the distance. And on the right is a wonderful American painting by Charles Courtney Curran, a painting of his daughter that we have in inventory at the moment. We also show collections on occasion. Some of you might know Dorothy Garland. On her 90th birthday, we had a deaccession exhibition of some of her early Texas paintings. She had moved into the tradition and didn't have enough room. And so an Otis Dozier on the upper right, a very large painting, one of the largest Otis Doziers we'd seen, a very important Dallas artist. And a Charles Bowling on the lower left, a watercolor. So it was a wonderful exhibition, and having it on her 90th birthday was quite an event. We don't just represent artists who had official degrees at famous schools and universities. Clara Mcdonald Williamson was an artist my father-in-law took on. She was a folk painter, one of the most famous in the United States, and she was from Iredell, Texas. Clara Mcdonald Williamson had a traveling exhibition that was planned by the Amon Carter Museum. It traveled to 6 major museums. She has a a couple of paintings in the Museum of Modern Art in New York. She's just one of the great artists who told stories about pioneer life, how things were. And my husband's mother wrote a book that wrote the exhibition catalog for the Amon Carter. Another artist who was from Longview, Texas, V. Locks Ward, named after a sewing machine, was also a self-taught artist. And he did about 30 different professions throughout his life, and painting was the only one that he just could never best. He never got bored with it. And here's two of his paintings. It's a great day at Valley House when one of these paintings that we sold many years ago comes back on the market. Charles Umloff was the first sculpture exhibition that happened after the gardens were designed here in 1959. He was a professor at the University of Texas in Austin, very famous professor. You will have seen his sculpture at the entrance to Love Field, the Icarus. This is one of his bronzes. And if you're in Austin, a great place to visit is the Umloff Sculpture Garden. He gave a lot of his land near Barton Springs to have a garden, much like ours, actually. Another early Texas artist this is an estate that we came across by Louis Oscar Griffith. He was a protege of Frank Ray, one of the very important early professors in Dallas. He did a series of etchings showing Dallas as this booming metropolis, and they circulated all over the United States. He was the first artist that did a cycle of works that showed what was going on in Dallas, and it encouraged a lot of people to move here. Another protege of Frank Ray was Josephine Oliver. Frank Ray led artists out into West Texas for a month at a time. It's kind of hard to believe that teenage girls would travel out with this older artist, a whole group of them, and they would paint for a month with pastel. He made his own pastels, and we had her estate here. So both these artists, we have done beautiful catalogs on. Every single Josephine Oliver we could find was reproduced in a book, and we commissioned a scholar to write the essays. Another artist, Olin Travis, was a Dallas artist. One of his Ayn Rand paintings on the left, and a ranch girl on the right. Fred Nagler is an estate that we will be showing coming up. He came to the Dallas area to spend part of his time. He was taught at the Art Students League. Religious subjects really interested him his whole life, as well as naturalist things. He was a close friend of some of the most important naturalists in America. And great drawings. So when you get a body of work like this, it's a great privilege, and to show somebody who has a tie-in with Dallas and with our founder, Donald Vogel. Donald, as a young student at the Art Institute of Chicago, would run in to see what Fred Nagler had submitted to the exhibitions that were on view. And I wanted to encourage you all to do something. I don't know if you've all done this, is to go to the Dallas Art Fair. It couldn't happen last April. It's not going to happen this April, but they have scheduled it for the first 3 days in October. So galleries pay an unbelievable amount of money to take a very small booth for a weekend. And this is our booth in 2019, in 2018. And we do a survey of the strengths of the gallery. 2016, 2014, and it's very exciting. There's about 90 galleries from all over the world that will be in a building just to the west of the Dallas Museum. It's a very exciting thing to do. I hope all of you will participate. We try to install something by each of our contemporary artists. We can never exactly do that all the way because there just isn't enough room in a 30 by 30 inch booth. There's a Eugène Boudin painting on the left, a Dozier painting just to the right of it. There's a big fabric piece at the end. So, and when you come to the gallery, you never know what you're going to see. All kinds of things happen serendipitously. This woman is a yoga enthusiast, and she was posing in front of a Deborah Ballard sculpture. And Karens will be visiting the pond on a regular basis, and white egrets. Bobcats have walked across the property here and there. And I hope you will come and visit our gardens. There's always something happening, and right now there are mallards on the pond. And participate in the shows that we have and be a member of our email list if you like. We let people know about other events that are happening in the community and where our artists are showing. So I think I've come to the end of my remarks, and I'll be happy to entertain some questions. So Edward, you're going to have to tell me what to do next.
All right, so you squiggle your mouse, go up to the top and do a stop share.
Stop share, there I am. Okay.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you all for your attention.
So if you have a question or a comment or whatever, just unmute yourself and
Okay, I have a question. Cheryl, where have you gone? Oh, there you are.
I'm here.
You talk about an outsider. Is an outsider
Yes.
someone who did not get formal training? Is that my understanding?
Yes, but an outsider paints from an interior vision. And whereas a folk artist paints something that is something they witnessed in life or something they're creating, but an outsider, it's another. They are self-taught, always self-taught, and it's a psychological vision that they're giving you. Like Valton Tyler, his earliest memories of his life are seeing Texas City blow up when he was 3 years old. So but he always painted things that were just his imagination.
Okay, that's what I was. So it's mostly imaginative information, thinking.
Yes, it is. And folk artists are artists that are like Clara Mcdonald Williamson was showing things that she remembered from her youth. Generally, it's an artist who wants you to know how things used to be done. So we're all over the board. You know, some of our artists they're radically different in their approach. I really don't care if they went to school, if they didn't go to school. They have to have some sense of soul, of projection of their inner being, and a skill in craftsmanship. And we try to promote things that just move us. And it's what most galleries do. So you want to believe in what you're showing. Give somebody a place to show their work and have a voice. So any other questions?
so about how many exhibitions do you have per year?
I would say usually around 10. Things are quite different right now. We are open. We've been open most of the time, but we're not exactly in the arts district. So if there are more people than someone feels comfortable with, they can walk in the garden. But About 10 different exhibitions. And I've got 2 catalogs underway, one on Mark Messersmith, the exhibition that's up currently, and there'll be one on David Dreyer, who's coming up next. And it will be my 3rd catalog for David Dreyer. So usually exhibitions last, the minimum amount of time they would last is 4 weeks. Might be 6 weeks, it could be 2 months. It depends on the complexity of the exhibition. We did an exhibition in the fall called On Being Human, which had about 50 figurative artists in the exhibition. And we left it up longer because everything was in such chaos, so.
The current exhibition on Mark Messersmith, that is until what time? Until when? It
will close on February the 27th. And Mark, so there's 2 more weeks. But when we close an exhibition though, we always maintain an inventory of all artists' works all the time. We don't send things back to an artist studio. In his case, send it back to Tallahassee, Florida. We will always keep things here on site.
And how soon after that will a new exhibition be showing after that closes?
A week later. The next exhibition will go on view on March the 6th. And there'll be 2 different artists. It'll be 2 different solo exhibitions. Part of the gallery right now has a very interesting group exhibition where we put up new works by the artist, some of the artists that we represent, introducing new artists, and it allows somebody who's coming in who might think Mark Messersmith's work is over the top to see other things that we do. So
I assume that if we want to get on your email list, we just simply just Google Valley House Gallery and we can get on your email list.
That's correct. That's correct. You can be on the email list right from there. And our website is very complex and very complete. You can surf around and see the different artists that you like, and it's very well done. In many cases, things have prices on them, which is very unusual in the art world. So take a look. But I do hope you all will come and visit with us in person. It's a very beautiful place.
Martha Durst has a question.
Well, I just want to say it's been a long time since I've been to the gallery.
And I recognize Martha.
And this was just, and it's amazing, even virtually, it's a wonderful experience. I've called Valley House the Oasis in North Dallas.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You did a great job.
Yeah.
Well, we're the 2nd generation here, and we are very happy to introduce people that we believe in and welcome visitors to have an experience here in the garden. So I hope you all will take me up on it.
Right. So
thank you.
In the next few months, that's something that we can do.
Yeah.
Get together,
Isabella.
Go walk through the gallery. And you've got there's a little area there by the main gallery building that's like a little patio, right?
There is. There are places where people can bring a picnic and either sit up by the gallery, or there's a wonderful little table back by the pond. And it's amazing how many people do take us up on that. And artists can paint in the garden as well.
Isabella, did you have a question?
The hours, Monday through Saturday.
Monday through Saturday from 10 till 5.
Okay, great. Thank you. We enjoyed when the Friendship was there with Felicity, took us there. It was beautiful. It was my first time. Thank you to Felicity for doing that.
Oh, absolutely.
Very welcome. We'll talk about
absolutely.
Yeah, it's a beautiful place and such a nice variety of artists.
Well, it's tremendous diversity in artists, and it's not just living artists, it's historical as well. So come take a look. We look forward to having you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Did your father-in-law start it off as a place to live and do,
he did.
Or did he start it off as a gallery?
He didn't really start it off as a gallery. The gallery building was the first building on the property, and this was way out of the city limit. And it was built as a frame shop because he thought he would always be able to make a living making frames or hiring somebody to make frames. And he had tremendous, he had tremendous skills in knowing about framing. And the early exhibitions were in the residence. And they would be hung around the walls of the house. The house has white plaster walls. And so it was a beautiful space for installing art. And, but at one point, the gallery was enlarged and a new frame shop was built across the driveway. And that's when we've added on to it even in recent years. So it's Donald had a lot of vision to move out here, and it's his own little Giverny, so to speak.
Yeah.
Well, if there are no more questions, I will close the meeting. And we again applaud Cheryl.
Thank you all for your time.
And thank you, Paula. Thank you, Paula, for putting this show together.
Oh, you're welcome. I didn't put it together. I just got hold of Cheryl. And I think Felicity is the one who suggested it.
Okay.
But you're welcome. That's my job.
Thank you all. And thank